Now let's take a look at how to map things more precisely in Maya using the UV editor. Now the UV editor allows point-by-point control over texture placement, and it can be used in conjunction with the other types of mapping. So you can project maps and then tweak them in the UV editor. So let's do a really simple example here. I've got a basic box here, and so let's put a material on it and apply a texture. So I'm going to just put a simple Lambert material on this. And if we go over to that Lambert, into the color channel, we will put a box texture. Now I'm going to go into File here, and under my file browser here, I'm going to find one called Wood Box. And as you can see, this is a wooden crate. And it's already unfolded. So what I need to do is match the unfolding of my UV editing to this. So I'm going to go ahead and click Open. And as you can see, this maps to my surface, but it doesn't really map the way that we want. So we need to tweak this, and we're going to use the UV editor to do this. Now we can find the UV editor under Modeling UV. And we can scroll down and just go into UV Editor. And this is the basic editor here. Now I'm going to rearrange my windows just a little bit here. So what we can see here is that this is actually mapped reasonably well. Sometimes when you open this up, it'll be a lot different, and you may have to move things around a bit more. But this one's pretty close. So what we have here is that each face in this model is represented here by a face. So this geometry is basically unfolded, almost like the box itself. Now, if I were to right-click above my object and say go into face mode, you can see that I can select each individual face, and you can see how it selects inside the UV editor. Now this UV editor is also a viewport, so I can navigate it like a viewport. I can zoom in, zoom out, and pan. Now when we edit UVs, we're not manipulating faces and edges, we're manipulating UVs. So if I right-click over this and go into UV mode, I can select individual UVs. So you can see it selected here and here, or I select this one or this one here, and you can see how as I select them, I can determine which ones are which. So what we can do is just use our move tools here to move these around. So I'm going to just select move, and as you can see, as I move the UVs, the texture now starts to stretch. And if I can zoom in here, I can precisely align this to my texture map. You can do the same over here and over here as well. Now, in the UV editor, we have the UV toolkit here, and so I can select UVs. We can also select what are called shells. So many times you'll have groups of UVs that are not connected, and those are called shells. And so this is actually one shell. We can also select faces, edges, and vertices. Now notice here that when I select something like an edge or a vertice, I'm actually selecting multiple ones because in the model, this edge is actually connected here and here. So if we go into the model, this is this particular edge, and so that will be this area here. So it's actually jumping between parts of the bitmap here. So if I select this edge, you can see how this edge is actually 2 here in the UV editor. So don't get too confused with that. And when you first start out, I would just stick to UVs and shells because that makes it very easy to edit. So I'm going to go ahead and select these UVs here, move them out. And again, as you can see, it's fairly straightforward once you get the hang of it. So again, I'm just going to line everything up the way that I want. So there we go. So now I've got this box mapped to that image. Now the UV editor has a lot of functionality. We can not only move UVs around, but we can cut and sew UVs, we can stretch, scale, unwrap objects in various different ways. And this is really a whole lot of features here. So we have a number of courses on UV editing, and I'd advise you to take a look at those if you want to dive deeper into this. But these are just the basics, and this should allow you to map your objects fairly well.